Welcome back to Voices of Impact, where we explore leadership beyond performance metrics and into presence, identity, and sustainable impact. I'm the CEO of Beautifully Empowered Coaching Consulting, LLC, an identity-led coach and strategic consultant, helping visionary CEOs and executives align their identity, strategy, and presence to attract, align opportunities, and create real freedom. Right. So through my sovereign aligned framework, I support leaders in moving beyond performance driven leadership into grounded, integrated impact. So today's conversation asks a powerful question. So, what if high performance and neurodivergence weren't in conflict, but they were actually in conversation? So, for decades, leadership narratives have celebrated resilience, composure, and output, often without acknowledging the invisible effort required to sustain them. What happens when excellence coexists with hidden struggles, right? When achievement masks overwhelm? So when the very traits that drive innovation are misunderstood inside rigid systems. I'm honored to welcome Kathleen Wisemandle to the show. So Kathleen is a scientist, researcher, and leadership coach who works at the powerful intersection of science and leadership. After more than 30 years in biotech and pharmaceutical leadership, guiding global clinical operations, now brings that rigor into executive coaching and research as a PhD candidate in industrial organizational psychology. So her work centers on the overlooked experiences of high-achieving professional women with ADHD, women who often master their challenges while excelling in demanding careers. So what makes this conversation especially aligned in what we both deeply believe is that sustainable performance requires psychological safety first. And rooted leadership begins with self-understanding. So this episode will explore what truly means to move from doubt to growth and to lead with your whole self. So welcome, Kathleen. Love to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Bina. I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing. So let's dive in. Can you share the personal and professional moments that led you to transition from a 30-year career in drug development into leadership coaching and founder work?
Yeah, it's something I had always thought about, but as a scientist, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for about 25 years before I went back to school and got a graduate degree in organizational change and leadership, primarily because I was working in a very complex industry where change was happening all the time. And I really wanted to help my teams navigate through that while still having to deliver on high quality work. And that's where I learned all about this sort of leadership frameworks and the organizational psychology that meant so much to me, gave me the language to help lead others through that space. And as I continued to lead for the next few years in that industry, I found myself being more pulled to that leadership coaching and development aspect. I reached a point where I said, hey, I think I've done everything I've wanted to do in this industry. It's been a fantastic career. I'm very thankful for it. Now what? And I feel like I'm always that person who wants to challenge myself to that next level. So I decided to get myself a little more aligned on what that would look like, and had completed an entrepreneurial workshop just to make sure I was really fully informed, and then completed my coaching certification at Northwestern and took a dive in.
Nice. Amazing.
Yeah,
Kudos to
thanks.
you.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
think it was just that time. That's your season and you just went for it, which is great. I think you have
Absolutely.
that intuition, that calling. That's like, you know what? I had a great time in pharmaceutical, but it's just my pivot now. It's my time, it's my season, and I'm ready. I'm getting signals. So let's follow our intuition. Here you are now. So that's
Yeah.
great. And I can relate to the whole pharmaceutical thing because I was also in that industry. And I know
Yes.
it's a little bit of a complex, busy environment, which is, I think there's good and pros and cons to everything. But
That's right.
when you evolve, it's just like, hey, like that was good. I'm grateful for the lessons, but I'm in a new era now, right? And that's leadership coaching. And I want to help others. Like you said, maybe you've reached your full potential and you want to help others. So, amazing.
Yes.
And during this journey, I know we evolve as a person, as a leader, whatever that is, right? Mother, daughter. So how has your identity evolved as you shifted roles? So you've shifted from like scientist and leader in life sciences to now a coach and a mentor and even a podcaster. So how has that evolved over
Yeah.
time?
It's been hard. And I talk to other women in this space when we move away from a career where title and compensation are really closely tied to our worth. It's really hard to unravel that. And when you build a business, I had a runway, a savings runway, and really felt confident that I could be fine after that runway. And then, the macro environment shifted, and I was also consulting biotech founders. That went away. And so I really needed to be able to have the confidence to experiment and explore and find this new identity of one of uncertainty and feeling okay with that. And also exploring and seeing what works and what didn't work. And that was really uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I had a lot of self-doubt.
Right. Right. And
Sure.
that's very common with identity work
Yeah,
because I'm also going through I can relate to all of what you're saying, right? Corporate into it's a totally different shift, but
it's
it's a
different.
good shift, right? It's more aligned. So when you're going from like something that you're used to for 30 years, such as corporate, and then going to something that's new, that's you might not have the stability that corporate gave you. It's just a very new space. It's going out of your comfort zone. It's going to have a lot of doubt, right?
That's
So,
right.
and the fact that you've gotten this far and you're, wearing so many hats, but you're really helping others. I think it's more of the why that keeps us going, right? And that's why you're here today.
Mina, that is so right on. The why, I had to root myself really in why was I doing this? And when I went back to that and I looked at my values, which is something right, it's the talk that I give
Yeah.
to my clients. I had to look and I said, was money one of my values, one of my
Right.
drivers? And it really wasn't. And I have the privilege of having, all my basic needs met. And
Right.
so okay, let's keep going.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's all about, leading with those values. And yeah, I think, I want to just kind of express that there's no right or wrong. It's okay
That's
to
right.
value compensation, even now as an entrepreneur, right? But you can have
Right.
both, but it's like that motivation driver. So you value compensation, you value financial freedom. That's totally fine. And a lot of, as a spiritual coach, and I've talked to a lot of people, it's like, this or that, but you can have both just because you
Both.
have a profit driven, or some people think if you're spiritual, it just has to be nonprofit. It cannot be profit. If you're profit, you're kind of money minded. It doesn't have to be like that. Spiritual coaches also are very successful compensation wise. So you can value that. But I think when it comes to, like you said, the motivation, the core driver that gets you up, and the first thing is serving your purpose and
That's
your
right.
why, right? Why are you here? Why did you start this podcast? Why did you start this business? Why are you going into leadership in the first place? So going into that is very crucial, right? When building a
Absolutely.
sustainable business, right? So amazing. And let's start with first of all, like the science, right? I know you have that science background.
Mhm.
So what common leadership blind spots do scientists and technical leaders bring to executive roles, and how do you help them?
I think what I find is that technical leaders tend to know the experimentation and the rigor involved with solving scientific problems. But when it comes to being adaptable to understand sort of the environment that's out there and the people that we have to work with, that can be a challenge. And what I try to do is open up that space to help them understand what's a technical challenge and what's an adaptability challenge, and how do we focus in on both and know that growth in that one area is still important and is still
Right.
growth and will contribute to their success. So it's a lot of self-awareness, and
Right.
starting with that awareness of what might they be really good at and what might be a little harder to do. And even when we have strengths, when do we overuse them?
Yes.
And I like to focus on strengths as much as possible, but the blind spots are important because it helps us remind ourselves when we're getting into a situation where we might feel uncomfortable, and just
Exactly.
being, acknowledging and then reflecting on that situation. How did it go? What didn't feel great?
Right.
What can I do about that? So I think it's just building that self-awareness. And many times these leaders are so focused on building and scaling their organizations
Exactly.
and fundraising that they don't take the time for self-awareness and reflection. And I like to hold that space for folks in a very safe way.
Right.
I will say it's an area where I don't think enough folks are
Right.
allowing that investment in themselves.
I do agree. And absolutely what you said is yes, there are strengths, but as an executive coach, I also realized like you said was right on point, is like they're focused on the technical, the scaling of the organization, which is absolutely necessary. But at the same time, like you said, where does that EQ come in? Where can I be more empathetic
Mhm.
to not only other people, to myself though?
To
Where can I
myself too.
focus on self-care? Because I see this in women a lot. Like they're like, I'm helping the organization grow and the business grow. And I had some conversations, but they're like, Bina, like, yeah, you've asked these questions. Like, I've never thought about it myself. Like, how do I
That's
apply it
right.
to my own life and my own career? So, yeah, I think the blind spots are, I just want to put it out there. And I think some people might misunderstand. It's really just for you to challenge the way your perspective is and then focus on where you can grow and learn and evolve. It's just an evolution thing that we're, helping you do. And I love how you're creating that safe space because whether it's women or men, and I've seen this in men, like they want to kind of self reflect, but I think just having like, hey, can I trust this person? Or it's
Yes.
harder for men to really open up. But when I had created that safe space for them in a way that, hey, like we need to embody that first, which is why, this conversation's about embodied feminine leadership is first we need to embody that and make sure we're bringing that safe space first. And we're leading with compassion. We are self aware first before we do it to others, right? So it's
Yeah.
helped so much of men in conversations and with women who have been having so much children. Because speaking of identity, they're also mothers too, right? They're also daughters of parents, they're also mothers. And they're like, I don't have the time to self reflect. So
Yes.
absolutely. And that's what's very important is I think just shifting the reframing of what spots mean to them. Like, what does that look like? How does it paint the picture for them? Because it helps them see like the reason why giving them that safe space is for them. It's for their own good, right? And they show up better. So I think just having those reframe and mindset shifts are important. So that just goes into my next question.
Yeah, I like to think of it as risk mitigation. So if I can
Yeah.
think of what a risk might be for me when I'm going into a conversation as a leader or as somebody asking for funding, I want to be able to do that so I can avoid anything that
Right.
I might miss. And so I like to reframe it that way also. Like it's
Yeah.
good. It's a good strategy, actually.
Exactly. Because executives, I think as coaches, I've learned is executives, because I've seen people who, and I have to say this for the truth, who say like executives are more difficult or, they're very direct. And I want to say like, that's not true. Yes, they have that, but it's just
Mm-mm.
when you speak in their language, they just don't understand, right? We come from a different lens. And, when we reframe things and speak their language, they're like, oh, yeah, I see what you mean. And then they just immediately open up, right? So I think those
Yeah.
kind of things that I want people to understand as coaches or as leaders is understand where they're coming from. We have to exhibit empathy first and see where they are, meet them where they are. And that's really important, whoever is an executive coach or a leadership coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, going into psychology, which is my favorite topic because I am a
Mm.
psychology minor as well.
Okay.
So, as a psychologist, a PhD candidate, and research practitioner, so how do you blend evidence-based frameworks with coaching that honors individual stories and context?
Yes. Very good. Good question. I actually didn't intend to go back for schooling. I continued to learn on my own. And when I was working with an executive leadership program with particular women were coming to me that were assigned to me and sharing that they had ADHD and these were high potential, high performing women. And I
Yeah.
saw enough of this pattern that I thought I need to learn more about this. And I continued learning and thought at that time business was slowing down because of some of the shifts in the environment. And I thought, let's just go back. Let's see what I can do. And if I don't finish, perfect. But if I dive in, let's see what kind of research I can find. And what I found is some of the research just opens me up to allow better questions to ask, to surface some things that some of these clients aren't aware of. And they may not even be
Right.
neurodivergent folks, but I'm sorry, just something just popped up. But it still gives me an additional framework to ask from a research based
Yeah.
practice and research what might be happening out there and how do we approach that from certain frameworks, but also just strengthening my coaching background. I'm really thankful for the experience. I broadened and learned so much.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think this is super important topic because whether it's in my family, even a lot of people I know, women or men, are going through this, but they believe that it's like, oh, I have ADHD, so I just need to sit in the back. I'm not going to be a good leader, right? There's a lot of
Oh
doubt coming
no,
in.
it's so
And
untrue.
it's something that is I've seen people talk about. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation. So for those who are listening and are going through it, what unique challenges and strengths do they bring to leadership transitions? Like
Oh my gosh,
they've seen.
so many. So I had not realized, because I think ADHD is a term that's so broad, that it could be a superpower. But
Yeah.
the thing is, there's a hyperactive impulsivity with ADHD, and there's also an attention deficit domain. So it could be one or the other. It could be both. It could be situational. But what I found is that most of these high achievers have very hyperactive minds, and that's more common in women. And that's often why they go undiagnosed as children, is that they don't have the hyperactive bodies, they have hyperactive minds.
Yeah.
And they learn to conform to the gender norms that have been assigned to them through schooling and other situations and through business to understand how to cope and mask, even if they don't realize they're coping and masking. But the things that I think have allowed these women to be successful, and even myself, is that they do have an opportunity to hyper focus on something, give it a lot of attention. There's a lot of strategic thinking and opportunity to see big picture, solving complex problems.
Mhm.
Typically, they get bored, so they like to continue to challenge themselves, which we see in many of these women and men. And they have a high level of empathy and sensitivity, which tend to make them very good leaders. And in a lot of the work that I coach in, these women are leaders of other people that are doing a lot of complex work and solving a lot of complex problems in a very fast-paced industry, not just life sciences, but I also work in other industries that are fast paced. And these women and men, but they do a lot of amazing work. But I think all of those things together make them fantastic leaders, but they also need to replenish themselves, because that's a lot of energy
Right.
exhibited there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was just really nice listening to you saying that because,
Oh,
there are just so many, I'm pretty sure out there who just believe like they're not good enough. How can I be a leader? And the fact that you said they exhibit empathy, but of course they need that energy replenishment is yeah, I mean, those are strengths that I want people to kind of think of it as like,
yes.
yeah, because I honestly read, I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and every person I come across who's a billionaire, $1 million, seven-figure coach, one of them, like a lot of them were ADHDs. They had it.
That's
And
absolutely true.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they talked about their struggles, but they were like, hey, we got through it. We had a support system. I use my strengths. I'm more resilient. I'm more stronger. Like you said, it's a superpower. And now I was on a figure business, and they're all like really good leaders, and I'm inspired by them. So looking at that and just finding those stories out there makes me feel like, yeah, whoever's listening, like you can be a business owner, entrepreneur, leader, anything,
Absolutely.
right? You don't have to dim your light because you're neurodivergent. It's no different. You're unique and beautiful in your own way to all women, and we all bring our uniqueness, right? And we need to like embrace that. So
Yes, I found a study when I was doing some literature review that was about entrepreneurial orientation. And actually, it's very closely aligned with a hyperactive, impulsive subdomain of ADHD. And that's regardless of gender. So I really just thought that was just a nice confirmation that it's possible for anyone to be an entrepreneur,
yeah,
even if you have
exactly.
neurodivergent thinking. Yes.
Right. Yeah, because we have these like things where we judge societal conditioning, like you can't do this because you're this. But I don't agree with any of that, right? Like I said, I've seen so many successful people, not go to school or, college dropouts or have some issue, but they're the most successful because they believed in themselves and their strength. And
Persistence.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Determination, persistence. These are the real leadership superpowers. And even when I started my entrepreneurship, I was like, oh, I went into corporate tech. I've never been an entrepreneur, but it was always those superpowers. I asked myself, what is it that I have that others don't? And like we talked about, it is that empathy. It is that resilience, that persistence, that determination that if you mention like most people, like you're in that top 1%, whether it doesn't matter if you're a normal, like neurodivergent woman of color, right? So those are just labels and titles, but if you go with it and you're like, I have this, I believe in myself, I believe in my purpose, you can make anything happen, right? So I just want to put it out there. And thank you for helping
Yes.
these women. So I want to say kudos to you, hats off to
Oh,
you,
thanks.
and I'm grateful to you and what the work you're doing.
Something you mentioned was so important is the
Yeah.
intersectionality of multiple identities and how that impacts how we show up. whether it's as leaders or
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, those intersections of our social identities do show up, and it's super important. So I hope to have an element of that within my research. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, because we've had conversations, and I'm a woman of color, South Asian, and we have our own societal conditioning, right? So if you see, there's most of us are like, let's go into corporate engineers, tech, and we have that assumption like as soon as you're South Asian or woman of color, this is what you're supposed to do. And like you have, because have some people in my family who are like, okay, maybe they are autistic, like you can't do this, and immediately there's an assumption, and that is not true at all. I've seen people who are actually like prodigies, right? Who have
That's
this
right.
superpower. And like I was watching a singing show and they're just amazing singers. And I found out that they were autistic and I was like, oh my God, like, you're needed in this world. It's a talent, it's a God-given gift, right? So
That's right.
like I said, depending on any identity, right? So
Yeah, so
and
many.
there's so many, but it's not about the labels, as mentioned. It's not about the titles. Like you have to know your unique self. And there is a gift that the divine has given you and put that out there regardless of society, what people say, right? Because you are needed in this world. So thank you for
Yes.
sharing that as well and doing your research.
Thank you.
And what practical adjustments, like whether that's systems, rituals, create belonging and reduce that overwhelm for these neurodiverse leaders?
I think from the approach of the coaching clients I had was just differentiating what was ADHD to them versus what might be a new situation that they were
Yeah.
in. And so I was working with one particular client who had had quite a jump in their career title, and she was feeling really insecure, saying, I think it's all because of my ADHD. And we had to sort of back it up to say, possibly it's just that discomfort of growing into something new, really differentiating what was something that was a result of new change and growth and that transition versus the label of something's wrong with me.
Exactly.
And just being able to reframe that, I think, was super helpful. And I could see herself moving forward and allowing her that patience to grow into something new and challenging, like anyone else when we
Right.
transition. There's a transition period.
Yeah.
We call it the neutral zone, but yeah, for sure, that neutral zone can be uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I can relate because I also had a similar client. And yeah, so I love how you shared that. Thank you so much. And then just, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable, but embrace that part, right? The transition, right? I think
So
all of
hard.
us, whether it's you, I'm going through that right now,
I
right?
know, I do, for sure. And
Yeah.
we
I mean,
sometimes do great, and then we go back right down to that
exactly.
neutral zone. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, whether you're neurodivergent or not, I think even us who,
Everybody.
like we all have that period. And I had to just step back and I was like, I'm not ready for it. And there's this, like today, I just had that epiphany, like maybe I'm just not in that season for something, right? And that's
That's
okay.
right.
We're probably in the season just for exploring. Like I took a Monday, I'm taking Mondays off. I took yesterday off and I was like, I just need that rest, that
It's
energy. And I
important.
also had a client who she had similar thing. Like she was like, she's a startup founder and, she's doing great. She loves her work, but she was like, I just can't, I don't have time for my hobbies. I don't know who I am. And I think it's because of my ADHD. And then we had those rituals and she was like, I was like telling her what her strengths are. And I was like, if you need to replenish your energy, like do something that
Yes,
energizes you. If you need to take rest, block that time.
that's right.
And I also mentioned like do some affirmations for self-love. There's nothing wrong with you, right? And then she was like, that really helped, right? Just doing those even today, I put like an affirmation every single morning for myself, right? And so for anyone, just write out those affirmations that you're beautiful, you're amazing, that your gifts are needed in this world, right? Like you're here on
Just
earth
as that.
because, yeah, exactly. You're rare, beautiful soul. It's your soul, it's your presence, it's your energy that people would want to be with you for, especially with women. That's really what it is. And I've learned my whole life, like maybe it's what I do and my output and the results. And actually it isn't, right? That's nice to have, that's amazing, but it's really who you are. And
That's
I
right.
talked to my client and she's a beautiful soul, honestly. She is. And I was like, you're such a beautiful soul. You're here for a reason. Just having those systems and rituals in place and then giving yourself some grace, talking to yourself like you're the goddess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very important because every single person here is a goddess in their own way, in a self-love way, obviously. But
Love that. Yes.
yeah, and these are some, and it really helped her. And she was like, yeah, I think I need
Oh,
to
I love that.
focus on that. It's not because of the ADHD. It's just like she's ADHD. Like it's like a label we have.
That's right.
I don't want to keep saying like ADHD. It's just, it's part of that, but there's a reason maybe you got it and it's okay.
We're a whole
You know?
person.
Yeah, like it's all about who you are, right? And it's about you just lead with yourself. And that's what this is about. Our conversation is leading with
That's
your
right.
whole self and just being
That's right.
yourself and
And trusting
unapologetically
yourself.
leading it. So I love
Yes.
this. It's a lovely conversation, a powerful one and a needed one. So thank you.
I agree.
And going into other aspects of leaders and current challenges. So I know this comes up a lot talking about worth. So how do conversations about money, worth, and abundance show up in your coaching, especially for leaders stepping into new chapters?
Yes, this is really important. I've been holding micro roundtables with some women who are going through challenges and transitions, and it's open to men too, but I find that men don't often sort of opt into those
Right.
spaces. But the conversations have been so beautiful because people are realizing they're not alone in feeling the way that they're feeling. And as you mentioned, it's sort of a season for most of these professionals that they're either transitioning or choosing something different. But it's really that conversation of saying, what was past? What have I done? What am I done with? What's unfinished? And what is left to do for me? And what do I want to do? What do I want to move forward with? And just trying to reframe that transition as being something of choice. And
Amazing.
part of that choice is just saying, like, as you mentioned earlier, the identity shift. Well, what does that mean for me as I move into this? How will I be seen? And what do I want to be seen as? And I think when they share with each other, especially in one-on-one breakout rooms, they come back and they're so energized. And that validation is honestly the reason I do the work, is because it's
Amazing.
so incredible for these women to realize that they're not alone. I think we spend so much time thinking it's just us, and that takes so much energy. When we realize we're not alone, it opens us up for possibilities. And I know that sounds woo-woo, but it's really, really true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can relate to everything you're saying because I'm in the same space where the past 2 days, I've been around people in communities. So if
Oh,
anyone doesn't know
nice.
threads, they're just beautiful souls, communities. We're talking about similar things like wealth and abundance and who are in transitions. And like you said, what does that mean? And who am I becoming? What does that look like? Like how would she think and act and dress? And my own friend, we all get together and she was like, hey, Vina, do this exercise of like, who are you? And yeah, it could be sounding a little woo woo, but at the same time, it's what kind of feminine leader do you want to be? Right. And like you said, I used to feel like I was always alone, which is why I joined some communities. I really feel like, I want
Good.
to say thank you as well. 'Cause I'm also creating community for these people.
Yes.
And the fact that you've creating this community and taking this, like having a safe space for all these beautiful souls and be like, hey, you're not alone. We're in this together. And like you said, having that joy, they're like, hey, like, yeah, this is fun. We did this together. And yeah, it's not just me. And what
That's
that
right.
looks like to them. And how to just take that, you don't even have to take that first step, just kind of being more aware and then just being grounded. Because at times we think like we're in that transition period. Like I said, I'm also guilty of this right now, that like, I don't know what's happening. We're so
That's right.
confused. Like, it's like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going somewhere? Am I going backward? It's just that phase where it gets very confusing, but you have to be surrounded by community.
That's
And
right.
so I really appreciate you talking about this and your coaching and bringing those like roundtables in. And it's really nice to do it with someone than just doing
I
it by
think so
yourself.
too.
Yeah.
I think so too. And I've been lucky to be in community or share community with others who are willing to speak about those things
Yeah.
and iterate and explore and be
Exactly.
vulnerable.
Right. Yeah. And it's so beautiful as well. Like, whether
Yes, it feels
that's,
so good.
yeah, exactly. It's just as a coach, and I'm also building something very soon. So, yeah, I think all of us are just building something to just help
You
others.
are a builder, Vina, and I love it. I love what I'm seeing from you.
Yes,
So good
yes.
for you.
So all of us
Trust yourself.
are. Yeah, all of us are, and I'm so glad that people like us are just really helping just kind of spread that positivity because that's very needed. So to all
It's so
leaders,
needed.
if whether that's like owning the voice on a podcast or just a few people in a round, it could just be like 2, 3 people. And the fact that you're making an impact for just 1 or 2 people, it's a big thing, right? Even if
It's
it's
a
like
shift.
just one shift, right? A mindset shift or even a ritual, like it could be anything. So that's amazing. I love this. Okay, awesome. So going into your signature approach. So yeah, so how do you help leaders access clarity and move from overthinking to embodied decision making without forcing answers? Like this is a very important question.
Yeah, it is. It's an approach I've felt as a leader to make sure that I was asking people rather than telling and really exploring to understand as a leader what people were facing and what their constraints or barriers were and what was important to them. As a coach, I also do the same thing, and I use a few different assessments to get to the things that we don't necessarily know about ourselves and again, tend to be more strength-based, but it does sort of open us up for conversations of what makes us comfortable. Where are we comfortable? Where are we strong? Where might we be relying too much on that strength? What might we be hoping for in the future and what's holding us back? And just trying to dive in with those questions to gain more clarity and just open people up. Sometimes I think the magic is always within the client. Everything's within them. It's just a matter of pulling it up to the conscious level. I always say sometimes it's magical, but
Yeah.
yeah, it really does come through. And, when the awareness and the aha moments happen, it's pretty
Exactly.
powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's just like, yeah, we're not trying to force something. It's just asking the
No.
right questions and helping them
Or
see their
shame people, none of those.
yeah,
It's all
no.
about just
Yeah,
finding the hidden nuggets that when we
exactly.
get in the day to day, we don't think about.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of going like, yeah, having those deep questions, right? So, I mean, there's one thing to have surface level and they're like, yeah, but it's really going in and understanding where those like hidden spot, like answers are, those hidden gifts that some
Yes,
people, they're like, I haven't even thought about. Like, I go into
that's right.
conversations and they're like, Mina, even on this podcast, like a few people, I asked these questions. They're like, Mina, I haven't even thought about this. This is great. And then they were
Yeah.
like, hey, maybe I need to like shift my braining a little bit. And I was like, wow, like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we
it gave
get
them
very
that
tunnel
clarity.
vision, right?
Yeah, it gave them that clarity and they were like, and then one person, even on this call after we had a collab session, she was like, yeah, I'm just like overthinking everything. And then just when you're in overthinking mode, sometimes, like you said, you have to go and feel within. And then
Yeah.
going back, just after asking her, like, so what does your, consulting name mean? Like, where is that why coming from? What does that look like to you? Like just painting the picture of their vision. So going into, because overthinking is more of a logic thing. But as women, we have to kind of go sometimes slow down, go within and feel it in our body. Like, why did I start this? So it's all going back to your whys and values. And then she was
Yeah.
just emailed me. She was like, you're right, Mia. Thank you. Like, this is why I
Oh,
started this. And, so it was
love
just
it.
like that aha moments, right? So that's how you would make the embodied decision making is just going down into your body and feeling that intuition. What is your intuition saying? What's your heart saying?
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, we're not forcing, like asking, like direct. It's just feeling into it. Right. So amazing.
Yeah, just exploring.
Yes, exploring. Just like, yeah, without thinking about it. Just what's coming to your heart, like, all of that stuff. So what single mindset shift would you recommend to leaders who want to scale impact, but preserve their well being and creativity? So they want to, like, also, so this is actually something I'm, thinking about, but they want to be so creative and follow their heart, but they also want to scale and have that systems and structures. And they're kind of like, I'm in the middle, but what would that single mindset shift be, do you think?
God, I um I think it's just patience and
Yeah.
compassion with yourself as you're making strides. I do tend to sort of put it in an operating system though, where we're getting clarity on what the vision is, the differentiators for this person or their business, the values, maybe a 5 or 10 year vision, a 3 year vision, a 1 year vision. And then what I try to do for that in terms of that container is to say any idea that's coming up that doesn't align with those things, just throw it out.
Right.
You need to be focused in order to be aligned with the things that you've mentioned. Now, you can change some of those things if you need to,
Right.
But if that's sort of your basis, it does help to align us and keep us focused. I know I come up with a lot of creative ideas, especially in the morning.
Yeah.
And I have to say, okay, that sounds really exciting, but is that aligned with where you want to be myself?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, not yet. But I'm going to put that on the back burner or on the parking lot because it's really still a great idea. How might I sort of iterate on that to go forward where that might then align with things? So the mindset shift is just slowing down and pausing and reflecting. Is what I'm doing aligned with where I'm going? And if not, is there a way that it can be? Or anyway, how do I really pause and reflect on that? The other thing is just that patience of growth and scaling is look at what you've accomplished. I know you want to look at that gap between where you are and where you want to be, but also reflect on where you've come
Exactly.
and just taking, slowing down just a bit because I think we need to give ourselves that compassion. If we're always in that mindset of reacting to not being enough, it's hard for us to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah. This is just such a powerful message
Oh,
because I
yeah.
think, yeah, I love this because this is just like a lot of women I've been talking to currently in the business. They're like, yeah, I mean, I need to scale it. Let's go. But then, oh, let me just be creative, which, I mean, that's okay. But like you said, having that patience, right? Because I'm a similar way as a go-getter. It's like, I need to scale, things are moving, but it's okay. And this morning I had the same thing that you just said, like, it's okay to slow down and just be creative and be patient, right? If it's just kind of like understand how far you've come. And like you said, I love how
Yes.
you said, instead of thinking about where this is going, like be in the present moment and celebrate the wins, right?
It's
Celebrate
hard.
it's hard. And
It's really hard.
this morning I was like, wow, like past 1 month, like this much of growth. Like I should be celebrating this rather than like just thinking about what's the next thing,
That's
right?
right. We are so achievement
Yeah.
oriented,
Yeah.
especially with how we've been wired in our education and going into corporate. We have to realize everything is not annual goals like we set it up
Right.
in corporate, and we're not
Right.
reporting to Wall Street. But everything is not always linear, but it's still momentum.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Even a
super
small
hard though.
step. Yeah, it is
Yes,
hard. It is
it
hard.
is
That's
hard.
why I love having this conversation because whoever's listening, you're not alone. I think every single
Yes, totally.
person.
Me too.
Yeah, we're still going through it. So, so we're learning as we're growing. So, and I love how you said alignment. So this is something that I've been telling myself and I tell everyone and my clients, alignment over attachment. So like you said, making sure that does this
Yeah.
align with where you're going? And I just love what you said. It's about aligning to where you're going, but who you're becoming. That
Yes.
I did, if this is an exercise, is the old me, which like not really old, but the old me that I
Yeah.
was
Previous version.
overgiving. Yeah, previous version. I was over giving, over explaining, that was just kind of put that on the side. And then this is the becoming. So who does she look like? What does she do on a daily basis? And it was more like preserving my energy. I would say no to things that it was like just being more intentional. Like I said, I took Mondays off. It wasn't achievement
Yeah.
oriented. I was like happy with slowing down. Like, community. And I look at that too. And then I would like look at, okay, what's the next thing on my list? Is it aligning to this or this? Right? If it's aligning
Yes.
to this, I would move, right? I would be like, okay. If it's not, like if I feel like it's burning myself out, I would just be like you said, put it to the side. So maybe it could be there, but it's not it's not going in the direction of who I'm becoming. So
That's right.
that's how you navigate the identity shift, like you said. And so perfect mindset shift right there is, it's not about, am I doing it well or correctly? It's everything's exciting. Everything is amazing. You just have to see if, rather than being attached, because attachment's more coming from like a trauma, like a wounding, like I have to do this. And alignment's more like the healing part of you. It's like, I'm going towards something that I'm becoming. And this is
Yeah.
my higher self, my future self, right? That
I like
is
that.
evolving, right? So that's how you would know.
Yes. Evolving. Yes.
Yes, right. So, and there's an affirmation that my friend posted that she was like, it's okay to just take the first step. You don't have to take like 10 steps forward. And it's
That's
all
right.
about evolving. So, like, everyone has a different pace. So, we're not trying to like compare. Because I know
That's right.
during this time, we tend to compare like she's going faster or I'm going faster and she's going low. It's not about that. It's everyone evolves at their own pace. But, having a community in front of you just, has that safe space to hold your, evolution, which is why I recommend, communities like this. So I recommend joining Kathleen's roundtables. I think you'll love her.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this would be great. So amazing.
Appreciate that.
Of course, of course. And going into my next question. So what's next for you and your practice, Kathleen? Any programs or initiatives you're excited to launch?
I think I'm doing a 2-hour virtual workshop from some of the folks who were in the roundtable, just to dive a little bit deeper, but to be really cognizant of the time for folks. And I will say that not everyone feels that they can invest in themselves for coaching.
Right.
Which I hope that people will overcome that, because it's such a gift. I think it gives a lot more than you realize. But these 2-hour sessions, I think, will help give some additional self-awareness, but build in some community and breakout sessions with people that are going through similar transitions or just identifying what's next for them. And I'm excited, because it usually does generate a lot of self-awareness, but energy and momentum. The podcast for me is just a way to get a voice out for people to realize they're not alone, and giving some small leadership tips to leaders who don't get necessarily invested in sort of micro episodes or mini episodes. But what I'm really excited about is sharing the voices of other leaders and how they define certain things that have been covered on the podcast. So that's my favorite, the leader reflections. And my hope really is to start doing interviews for sharing stories of people who have have moved into a career pivot or transition with the way that they see themselves, just to get voices out there so people realize they're not thinking about this and they're the only one. Yeah. So that's really my purpose with the podcast. And it's kind of a challenge for me to learn, and I like a good challenge. And I'm okay being vulnerable and not being perfect on this, which is unlike me in my whole life. But I'm leaning in and saying imperfection is okay.
I love that.
So
happy for you. So happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, so exciting. You have everyone's support, my support. So
thank you. I'm
so
very
excited.
thankful for my friends and my support, and you, Vina. And and if you hear a dog barking in the background in one of my podcasts, I think you get a prize.
I love that. I love how you're just being you. So
I'm trying. It's hard.
It is. Yes. Knowing that, what you bring, you're already bringing your presence, and that's all enough, right? For your clients and for people, because that's what will make them invest in, right? It's just the fact that you're helping them just level up and being the version they want to be, right? And that's good enough, right? So just kind of having that reminder.
Yeah. And actually, I'm a mom of adult children, and I really want them to see that taking chances and not everything's perfect, and exploration and iteration are necessary. And
yeah, absolutely. Also, so I would love to get into the fun rapid fire round. So just quick answers. I know you already mentioned this question, so let me go into the next one. Coffee or tea? What fuels your coaching sessions?
Coffee. Although in the afternoon, I like tea.
Yeah. I think coffee gives you the adrenaline, but tea just calms you down.
Exactly. Totally. Yeah.
So you kind of need both. Okay. So if your leadership philosophy were a book title, what would it be?
I think it's like You've Got This, or Trust Yourself.
Yeah. Trust yourself. Love that. Amazing. And one hobby that grounds you outside of work. So it could be gardening or knitting, whatever that is.
Yeah, I do both, actually. And I have to say, in the winter, organic gardening is not really active. So I miss it so much. But I found it relates a lot to some leadership concepts and the biodiversity. But in the winter, typically knitting.
Yeah. I love gardening. I haven't gone into, but my friends have, and I've always liked it, just going out in nature. I remember I would, do a little bit when I went to India for my grandparents' house, but it's a lot of fun. And just going out in nature and flowers, it just makes me so happy. So it just grounds me and calms me. So I love this. Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much for your wisdom, Kathleen. This conversation is just beautiful. And it reminds us that high performance doesn't require self-erasure. Doubt isn't weakness. It's often the signal that you're evolving. So sustainable leadership isn't about pushing harder. It's about leading from integration. So where identity, ambition, and well-being work together. So if today's episode resonated, if you are navigating a transition or sensing misalignment in your leadership, I'd love to invite anyone to a complimentary vision collab session. So this is a focused strategic conversation where we clarify who you're becoming, what alignment truly looks like in your leadership, and what intentional shifts would unlock your next level. So you can book your session through the link in the show notes. So I'd love to support you in designing what's next. So, and this is also why I'm launching a similar community called Sovereign Rise very soon, a global collective for soul-led leaders, building from identity and integrity and impact. So not a space to consume content, but collective to co-create legacy. So if you're ready to rise into leadership that feels rooted, embodied, and fully yours, this is your invitation. Thank you so much again, Kathleen,
Thank
for
you,
your
Vita.
presence and light. Until next time, keep leading with your whole self.
Thank you.